welcome to a new episode of Hallmark Heartbeats, a podcast all about Hallmark movies. And Merry Christmas, everybody. This is our Christmas podcast. And guess who joined us this week for our Christmas podcast? Our jolly old Saint Paul.
I'll take it.
Paul Campbell, the writer/actor extraordinaire. You know, we were just Merry Thanksgiving weekend just passed when we were recording this anyway. And we said that they should change the name of the weekend to like the weekend of Paul Campbell. Since you kind of handed like 4 of the movies.
I know. I sort of I don't know how that all lined up, but they were just like, let's lump him together in all and just make him the whole weekend. Give thanks for Paul giving weekend. And I'm like, oh, you can't just put them all together like that. And they're like, nope, we did.
I know, like it would have been just the only movie that was really missing is Santa Stakeout. If Santa Stakeout would have aired on that weekend, it would have been all Paul.
I know. It's ridiculous. I'm overexposed. It's time for me to like slink back into my cave for a little bit and disappear. Give people a break.
We love the overexposure.
Okay. Deal.
Anyway, you've been working with Hallmark for many, many years. What was like your first Hallmark movie?
I've been working with them since 2014. So the first one was Window Wonderland. That was 2014. Yeah,
with sorry, I know her as Lexi Gray on Grey's Anatomy.
Chyler Leigh, and then Cameron Matheson. That was Cameron Matheson's first Hallmark movie as well. Both of ours.
Yeah, that is so cool. You look really young in the pictures for that movie.
Well, I was, I think I was clean shaven, first of all. And I've aged a lot. Having a kid aged me. I've aged 10 years in the 5 years I've had a kid.
That is too funny. So, like of all of the movies that you've done for Hallmark, which one would you say was your favorite movie?
That's a tough question. I get that question a lot, and I usually end up defaulting to Window Wonderland. I think maybe I would always say Window Wonderland just because it was my first. It was my first movie, and I just had my eyes open to the world of Hallmark and to how fun it could be. And that was really at a time when Hallmark was trying to make more sort of traditional rom-com style. So the script was really funny and the characters were really funny and there was some broad comedy. And I was like, this is right up my alley. I can do this. But Christmas by Starlight, which was the first one that I was involved in the writing process as well, was incredibly challenging just because I was on set as both a writer and an actor. That was the first time that I'd ever done that. And saying my own words and also hearing all of my co-stars say those words. And it's really, I found it both enjoyable and also sort of a curse to be like, oh, I've heard that line said in my head 1,000 times. And now you're saying it differently than I envisioned it. And just not being critical, like just being free to be in the scene and be the actor and not also be a writer going, I think actually it could be better if you emphasize the word Christmas there, but that was really fun. It took me 2 or 3 days to sort of settle into my role as just an actor and get rid of being a writer.
The preconceived notion of what you thought certain words were said.
Yeah, I mean, also like the tone, you write scripts with a certain tone and a certain energy, and then you get to the shooting phase. And with Unexpected Christmas, there were a lot of scenes that I wrote in a very different tone. And then I see the performances and I realize that actually it's in the hands of exceptional actors who know just what to do with those words. And it's not what I had envisioned, but it's equally, if not more, entertaining and valid. That's sort of the exciting part. Handing your work over to somebody that can't act at all would probably be really frustrating because you're like, you're ruining my stuff. But with Tyler and Joy, and then also with Lacey and Stuart Townsend, they're professionals. They're like, we can take your words and we can make them better. and it just makes me look good, you know.
Let's talk Santa Stakeout. How was it working with Tamera?
It was great. It was great. You know, like again, you especially when you're doing something that is meant to be more of a comedy, having somebody to work opposite that comes from a comedy background. Comedy is a really tough thing, and not everybody gets it. Just because words are funny doesn't mean it's going to be funny. And there's intention, and there's stakes, and there's objectives. That comedy is all about conflict. And if you're not really playing the conflict and letting that sort of live at the surface, the comedy just falls flat. Tamera comes in knowing exactly how to do her job, so it was great. And our director was Peter Benson, who's been at Hallmark forever, and he's phenomenal. And he just was like, he was down to play and to let us do dumb things and do funny blocking. And, you know, like that's when the greatness comes, and that's when the great moments come, is when you're just free to play in the space and you're with somebody who's willing to play in the space, and you can ad lib and you can sort of react.
Timings with Tamera, you know, like one of my favorite scenes was, it's a small scene, but we were at the dining table, and she was talking about how you guys are a perfect couple. You guys finish each other's, and you're supposed to say sentence right after her. But you had a donut or something in your mouth, and you're like, "What? Oh, sentence."
You would not believe how many dinner rolls I ate because I had to stuff it in there every take. And they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to stuff the whole dinner roll in there every take."
It was just perfect timing, because I mean, it was such a small scene, but that little hesitation just made it like funnier.
I think that was my most, that scene between us is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie, where we're telling the story of how we met. I got a lot of joy from that. There was really good energy in that scene, and like it just built and it built. That was a really fun scene to film.
Yeah, you also worked with Joey Pent. I'm gonna screw up his name.
Joey Pants. Just call him Joey Pants.
Huh?
Joey Pants. He goes by Joey Pants because nobody can say his last name. Pantoliano.
Yes. I mean, like, I'm a huge fan of him as well. So how was it working with him?
He's a legend. It was great. You know, he comes in with like real, like tough guy HBO gravitas, and you're like, "Hey, dude, that's not the movie we're making. We're making a Hallmark Christmas movie, man." But you know, he never wavered. Yeah, he never wavered, and he delivered like a really heartfelt performance. And you would go like, "Oh yeah, he's the bad guy." Right away, you look at him, and he walked that line beautifully. Of like, you never really knew. You just always assumed he was the bad guy with kind of a heart of gold, and by the end, he just won us all over. He was a trip, man. He's really fun to work with.
It was a good plot twist to see that he wasn't. So it was nice to see that.
I know. Well, it would have been
like, called it from the beginning. I was like, he's not the bad guy. This is no way. He's the bad guy.
Pretty crappy story if he was the guy who like lost his wife, and who's like, you're like, "Oh, I love this guy," and then he just turns out to be a total crook. That would be that'd be really bad writing. You're like, "Why did you make us fall in love with this guy if you're just going to cart him off to jail?" Yeah, that would
be heartbreaking.
Yeah, we love you. Yeah, exactly.
Do you have any behind the scenes?
Tamera before Santa Stakeout, because I'm a fan of hers from Sister. I just want to know if you watched her too from way back when.
I'd seen a little bit, but I didn't really know her work too much. I didn't even know I didn't remember that she had a twin.
You didn't know she had a twin?
No, like I don't know why I just didn't put it together. And then when I found out that we were working together, I went on Instagram because I just wanted to say, "Hey, I think we're doing a movie together. Really exciting." And I ended up messaging her sister. I sent her sister a direct message, and then and it was a long message, and I never heard anything back. And then Tamera, on her own, sent me a message on Instagram, which I assumed was in response to the message that I had sent, but it was just like, yay, we're making a movie together. And I didn't know that for her, it was just an introduction. And I was like, yes, can't wait. Like I gave her the sort of short response that you would give after a long speech up front. And then when we finally met, she's like, you seemed really sort of short and curt on Instagram. And I was like, well, you read my other message. She's like, no, I didn't. What other message? And I was like, I sent you a long message, the whole thing. She's like, did you send that to my sister? And I was like, I didn't. No, you probably did. Yeah. And sure enough, there it was in her sister's inbox, unread and untouched. So that's how we started that movie. Just like a couple of
That
dum-dums.
is too funny.
Mhm.
Y'all really worked well together, especially for people who haven't worked together all this time.
It's true. You just gotta like, that's the crazy thing about these things. You show up on day one and that chemistry, that energy, that rapport has to be there immediately. It's also in a movie like Santa Stakeout or in a movie like Unexpected Christmas, which is a better example. Those two show up having known each other for 2 years already. So you don't get to play those, like when you're actually getting to know another actor in real time, in those moments where you're like, oh, hi, I'm getting to know you. Hi, my name is this. You get to play that sort of awkward getting to know you. But in a movie where you're supposed to have that familiarity of people that have been together for 2 years already, you have to show up in the first scene, the first take, already dropped into that sense of familiarity. It's not an easy thing to do. There's no time to like learn on the job. You just have to show up and be there.
Well, talk about your, longtime coworkers, or at least like however many movies. You've worked with Kimberly Sustad.
Mm-hmm.
Like
3 movies.
what?
We've done 3 movies. Well, yeah, I guess 4 times if you count 9 Kittens.
Yeah, because you did Christmas by Starlight, Wedding Every Weekend, Godwink Christmas, and 9 Kittens, even though you barely were on there.
Just a quick pop, yeah.
I love you guys. And do you guys I don't know, how do you guys say this? Go, I want to work with Kim. This is who I want to work with to Hallmark. Like, how does that work?
Well, no, I mean, we didn't know each other before Godwink, and then we worked together on Godwink, and we came up with the idea for Christmas by Starlight while we were filming, and we're like, let's try and write this. And then we started writing it, and as we got closer and closer to the reality of it getting made, Hallmark offered us Wedding Every Weekend. Because typically I don't know that they try to pair people up as much, but I think because COVID was happening and they were like, you're both in Vancouver, you guys want to do this? And we were like, of course, let's do it. So we did that. And then Christmas by Starlight was already in the works and it was already slated to go. So we knew that was going to happen anyway. So things just kind of stacked up like that. And then with 9 Kittens, that was a call from Randy Pope, who was the head of Hallmark essentially, and under Wyona. And he's like, hey, do you want to do a cameo in one of our movies? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. What is it? He's like, it's Kim's movie, 9 Kittens. And I was like, of course it is. Yeah, of course. So yeah, it'd be hilarious. Let's go do it.
I honestly thought it would be a call from Kimberly. Like,
no, I mean, we don't really get, as actors, we don't get a say in casting unless you're an executive producer. You don't really get a say in anything. We always fight for stuff, like, creatively, but in terms of casting, we don't really get to choose. That's very much a Hallmark executive level decision, how that all comes into play.
Well, like, what is your relationship with Kimberly Offset? Are you guys like good friends kind of thing? Offset kind of stuff?
We worked a lot together writing Unexpected Christmas. She's got 2 kids. I've got a kid. We're both like incredibly busy. We'll see each other occasionally, but it's, unless you're focused on working, like, I don't know, somehow my life is just chaos all the time. And I think it has to do with chasing a 5-year-old. So no, we don't, there's not a ton. I don't really socialize with anybody. I'm kind of I don't know. I'm either like with my kid or I'm working, I'm writing, or I'm building. I do a ton of building stuff. I probably should be more social, but no, I don't do a lot of socializing.
Well, it's hard to do that when you've got a virus, deadly virus floating around. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. It's pretty limiting. And we're shut in for the past couple of years, just playing it really safe and keeping our bubble group really small. My mom's been struggling with illness for years, and I'm like, I don't need to bring that to her. And I don't know. It's been a lot of downtime the last couple of years.
okay, we mentioned Merry Thanksgiving weekend, but we're gonna talk about some of these movies. Unexpected Christmas, which we definitely mentioned. But the inspiration, what was your inspiration to write the movie?
So this one showed up at Hallmark as a script written by somebody else. Originally, it was called Christmas in Harmony, and
This was in Harmony.
it was called Christmas. They changed the name because there was another movie called Christmas in Harmony.
Yeah.
Okay, we were like, wait
Yeah.
a minute here.
So
that's a different movie.
totally different. Yeah, and they were like, we can't have two movies called Christmas in Harmony. So this is a guy, Greg Magoon, who wrote it. He wrote it on spec, and it was a really fun, sweet script, but there were some pieces of it that didn't really work for Hallmark, and so they asked him if he would write it back into outline form, which is typically where they develop from. They'll look at an outline, and then they'll develop the outline, and then you can go to the script phase. And so he wrote out an outline, and I think there were still pieces of it that just weren't quite working, because we found the lie, sustaining that lie for the duration of the movie and justifying it's not a nice lie to tell to his family, was a really, really tough thing to justify emotionally. And so when they came to me, they said, hey, we have this really fun concept. There's this couple that pretends to be together. You can read the outline if you want, or you can just sort of like start from scratch. So I read the outline, and I thought, I think I have to kind of go back to the drawing board and just take the basic idea of two people pretending to be together for Christmas, spending Christmas with his family, and see what comes out. And the more that I started to really dig into the emotional justification, the more the story changed. And then by the end, it was just it was a whole different story. All the characters and everything was totally different. So there's like the ghost of the old movie still lingers. And to Greg's credit, it was a really cute concept. The only way to make it work was to completely rebuild the characters and come up with a new story for the lie. And it was like 5 months of work. It took me 5 months of hard work to write that thing, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours to get it right, because it was so tricky, So like you have to sympathize with both of them the whole time. The second you feel like they're being jerks, the movie doesn't work. You don't root for them to get back together. You're like, they're just deceiving this family, and it feels so crappy. So it was a delicate thing to write. Castle Hart, on the other hand, was a rewrite that I did as well, and that was a really nice script. It was a very sweet story, but Hallmark wanted it to be funny, and they wanted it to be a little edgier and have a little punch. So they said, hey, can you take this? Can you do something with it? And I was like, yep, I can do something with this. And that was about 4 weeks. That one took about 4 weeks. And it was basically from the very beginning, just a complete makeover, character rebuild, complete dialogue makeover, and then some story elements changed, some locations, and like integrating the discovering their family at the end, and all that stuff was all sort of newly added to the
I love how they discovered their family. I cried at the end of the scene.
It's one of my favorite scenes. That was the intention. That's what we were going for.
I was like, why are you doing this to me? But I do have to say that you seem to have a like niche for comedy. Do you like writing comedy more than drama?
I guess I do. Yeah, I guess I do. I like what I like is I like being able to find humor in dark situations. And honestly, like, dark situations lend themselves to comedy so well. I talked a little bit about conflict, and in Unexpected Christmas, it's the whole thing is one big conflict. It's a conflict between these two. It's a conflict between those two and the family. They each have their own conflicts. He's writing a speech and she's trying to put together this project that seems to keep falling apart. So there's like 5 different ongoing conflicts they get to juggle, and it makes for so much fun to write. But like, I haven't written a traditional drama ever. I think there are some really sweet and dramatic scenes, you know, in the movie. But if I can find, for me, and maybe it's just in my own life, like, even when things are dramatic, I always find a way to make a joke, or there's always, like, if I can get a smile in a dramatic thing or bring a little light, then that's something I usually aim for. So when I'm writing more dramatic scenes, I always try to find a little something, you know. And for Hallmark, they don't, especially for stuff for the main channel, for Christmas movies, they don't want really heavy drama. They want the lightness. So it's kind of the perfect world for me, is writing these movies. I've worked on some other half-hour comedies that I've tried to develop and written some scripts, and I really enjoy it as well. But there's something about this blend of heart and humor that I feel right at home writing that stuff.
I think one of my favorite scenes in Unexpected Christmas was the scene at the end where Chyler is in the unicorn costume in the play. I mean, everyone was just like, that scene makes this movie worth watching.
Man, there were some good lines in that play that didn't make it in. That play, as I wrote it, was so big, and they did a really good job. But, you know, you write sort of the dream scenario, but there were some exchanges between Chyler the unicorn. He had one line where he goes, Santa goes, but lo, behold, as sure as I'm born, there before me, he goes, a deer with a horn, and then Chyler goes, nay, my good man, not a deer with a horn, though my horn may be deer, I'm a deer unicorn, and I've come from above, whatever, with, you know, to save Christmas with the power of love. Like, there was this whole sort of like Shakespearean exchange that which didn't end up making it for time, unfortunately. But I was like, I just went to town on that scene. That whole scene was really fun to write. And as written, it was like he stumbles around and the entire set comes down, and then the Christmas tree falls and he catches Scotty in the Christmas tree outfit. They couldn't shoot all of it, obviously. That would be like the Netflix version of it. But
that was funny. I was thinking to myself, like, Paul did this to torture Chyler.
Yeah, a little bit. Oh, I didn't know. I actually wrote that role for myself. I didn't know that Chyler was going to be in the movie. Because I started writing it back in February, and I was like, well, listen, I'm just going to write this in my own voice, and then hopefully they give me the job. And they had said all along, we want to write it for some, like, a couple in their late 20s. I don't play late 20s anymore. And they were like, and so I was like, fine, I'll just write it for late 20s. And then when they got to casting, right before they cast it, they were like, can you just change the ages in there? It's going to be mid-30s. We know who we're casting. I'm like, I could do mid-30s. I would have done it for me. Why am I not in it? And they were like, we got Chyler and Bethany. And I was like, oh, you literally couldn't have found 2 better actors. Fine, put them in it. But I wrote it in hopes that I would be in that role. And then I ended up doing Santa Stakeout, which was great. But
can I ask you a question? How old are you?
You may. 42.
Really?
You're 10 years older than I am then. I'm 32.
Well, there you go.
You look 42. What's your secret?
Man, thank you. I don't know. I bathe in the blood of baby lambs every night. I don't know. I don't have a secret. Smile a lot. You know, be positive. Don't let the world get you down.
Do what you enjoy. Yeah.
Exactly. Do what you love and smile. And have a beer every now and then.
So you've done the acting and the writing. Do you see yourself directing next?
I'd like to. Yeah, I think I feel like maybe I've got 2 or 3 more years of writing. I'd love to get really good at figuring out how to get these stories told on paper before I try and figure out how to tell them behind the camera. Directing is still such a vastly different field, and I don't feel prepared in any way to go and do it. I watch colleagues like Peter Benson do it, and Ali Liebert, who's directing now. These actors come directors, and I go, oh, you guys are so far ahead of me in terms of your technical understanding, and I'll get there, but I don't feel ready to do it yet. It's a big job. Directing is not easy, especially directing comedy. Comedy is really a lot about camera movement and framing and stuff. Drama, I don't think it's as tough. You can sort of set the camera up here. You want to see people's faces. You don't have to do funny movements, funny reveals. But I don't want to direct drama. I want to direct comedy.
I swear you are perfect for comedy. I honestly, I just, when we were doing our review of Castle Hart, I was like, this has Paul all over it.
Yeah, I snuck a lot of good jokes in there. Some of them made it in, some of them didn't, but there was a lot of and Stewart also underdelivers stuff, which is really funny. Like he really underplayed. He was written as a really sharp sort of a character with a lot of edges, and he underplayed it in a really interesting way. The humor is still there, but he didn't really lean hard into it, which is great. He wasn't pushing the comedy, but it was, that script was pretty fun.
One of my favorite comedic scenes was when the journalist was still in the castle and Margot is on the phone with Brooke and she's like, Partridge is in the pantry. Partridge is in the pantry. And Brooke is like, what are you talking about? And so finally when she talks to Aiden, she was like, Margot is bird watching or something.
Yeah. Oh, she's bird watching. Yeah. So dumb.
It was very, very subtle, but it was so hilarious. I just love it.
I'm glad you caught that. Those are the layers. A lot of people won't get that. They'll be like, I don't know. That was a weird run. I just sit and giggle when I write those things. She's bird watching. Full dad jokes.
I love those kind of like small comedy moments that were like slapping you in the face kind of comedy, but just like you have to catch it and like then enjoy it.
Gotta work a little bit. I gotta make you work a little bit for those.
Yeah. So you've been a vocal advocate for representation on screen. You talked about Wedding Every Weekend, which was I believe the first movie that featured a same-sex wedding. What kind of like what more would you like Hallmark to do? Like what further steps would you like to see the channel do? Do you think that there will ever be a chance where the lead storyline will be a same-sex couple?
Absolutely, I think there will be. Yeah, I think there will be. There's a period of sort of adapting that Hallmark is doing, and sort of like they're definitely forging new paths. We're seeing that, particularly this season already, they're pushing in different directions in terms of inclusiveness and diversity. I think they're it's the Christmas House where Jonathan Bennett is in a same-sex relationship, and I know they're not the leads, but I think they're realizing that the time is now to start telling those stories. And I know Ali Liebert she was in one of their movies recently, the one with Erin Cahill, and
Every Time a Bell Rings.
Yes.
Every Time a Bell Rings. Yeah, there's a same-sex relationship in that. And I think more and more we're going to see those stories featured front and center. I absolutely think they will. I think for them, honestly, and this is just my guess, but from a business standpoint, they probably go, okay, we're trying to win over a new audience and probably attract a community, the LGBTQ plus community, that is like, has historically not probably tuned as much to watch the network. So we have to, like, they're finding ways to go, hey, here's what we're doing. Here are the stories we're telling. Come and watch our stories, come and watch these shows. And I think they're doing a really, really good job in the span of really a year and a half since Wedding Every Weekend, which was when that first idea went into production. And it was just a blip. That was like two females had a kiss at a wedding and they show up, a little bit throughout the movie. But I think they've made incredible strides. And I'd like to see them go further. Like you said, I'd like to see same-sex couples front and center, feature some different people from different nationalities. I don't know. I'm open to whatever they're doing. And I think they're going to go at the speed that makes sense for them, but I'm happy to be on board for whatever speed they're going. And I think so far they're doing a really, really admirable job of going like, we're going to shift this network because that's a big,
we're both
it's a big thing.
Yeah, we both have disabilities, and we'd love to. We've seen that they had the movie with the autistic boy recently, and we both really connected to that.
Which one was that? I didn't actually see that one.
It's on Hallmark Movies and Mysteries. It was called Our Christmas Journey.
Oh yes. Okay. I saw the trailer for that.
Yes.
You're right.
So what?
Was it good?
We just released the interview with the actor who played the autistic character Nick Sanchez. So we just interviewed him last week and stuff. And so it's a good movie if you want to watch it. But I mean, like, I'd love to see a disabled lead character show a storyline of someone in a wheelchair falling in love with an able-bodied person kind of thing.
Listen, my mom had polio when she was 2, and she was paralyzed from the waist down since she was 2 years old. So I grew up with a mom who was on crutches and in a wheelchair, and I know very well. I mean, she was extremely high functioning. She raised 3 kids, essentially from a wheelchair. I would love to see a disabled person in a lead, or I think it's a question of finding the right story, and it has to be done carefully so that it doesn't feel like it's almost gratuitous, and that's where people go wrong. It's like, oh, you just cast somebody in a wheelchair because you need to tick that box, and it's like, especially with Unexpected Christmas, we set out to write the character of Tyler's sister. She's gay, yeah, right, Becca, as just like, oh, you're just a human. We don't have to like talk about the thing, It's like, and this is in my world with my friends, who come from all walks of life. That's just how people are. We're all just people, and so the story would have to be literally just take any sort of straight down the middle Hallmark movie and swap out the lead for somebody with a disability, and don't write in. It's not about like building a wheelchair ramp at the community center. It's about, and I agree 100%. I think I would be fully behind the network doing that and being
Lifetime did it last year with the Broadway actress Allie something. The one who won the Tony Award for her role. But yeah, she, as a wheelchair user as well, that's what I want. Because I remember growing up, like, one of my high school crushes telling me later, as adults, that he liked me too, but then he was like afraid of the disability, which like was like, so it had me going like, what is there to be afraid of? Number one, and number two, ouch.
Yeah, damn, dude. Like,
I mean, my disability is invisible, so unless I reveal it to the world, no one's gonna know I have it. and have epilepsy, and that's why I guess I've connected so much, because autism is invisible as well, and I'm totally connected to that storyline. And I told my dad about it, and because my dad raised me, I had a single parent too, so I was like, I grew up like, when I told my dad, I said, well, the stuff we went through, I've connected to this movie. So yeah, I mean, that's what it's about, is seeing yourself in a character.
Seeing your storyline on TV.
Mhm.
With something like Epilepsy, I mean, that's a really interesting character piece to add, because how you integrate that into the story. I mean, unless you want to make the story about someone actually having a medical emergency to do with epilepsy, as I can only imagine, and only knowing my mom's journey as a human, but having actually my uncle has epilepsy as well. My family's got a whole host of different things going on, and I know what his journey was like, and how it sort of, even though it is invisible, how it's informed who he is today. It did shape him, because he was constantly having to live with this awareness, or this.
That's exactly what my father said to me. He's watched me deal with this and struggle with this and fight to have a normal life, work a full job, just function, drive, everything, just to feel normal. And I told my dad one day, you don't know how hard it is to feel normal. And he's like, I think that's the best quote you've ever given me. He had to remind himself of that.
Yeah, it's tough material to handle.
It
because
is.
you go, well, I don't want the audience to feel sorry for you.
No.
You don't want that, and you don't want to go, oh, woe is me. This is tough. You don't want to tell that story, because then it doesn't actually do justice to someone going, no, I have epilepsy, no big deal, I function just fine. And it's
I would just look at it like, write a story that you would write for an able-bodied person, but then add on the disability component, because from my standpoint, I don't see myself really any different than another able-bodied person. I just am in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? The storylines don't really have to change, because I don't see my life differently because I'm disabled. Yes, there is some accommodations I have to deal with, like,
I get it. I think it's that would be a really interesting writing challenge for me, would be to write a strong, empowered character who goes, here's the deal, this is the thing, there's things I can't do and can do. It doesn't, and have that person already have done the work of reconciling that, and go, my issue is not the wheelchair, it's emotionally falling in love, and it's the same as everybody else, right? The hurdle that we have to find as an able-bodied person and a disabled person is, are we compatible emotionally, not how does this physically affect us. And my mom had such a great sense of humor. Like, as kids, we were able to, like, we would make jokes, not mean-spirited, but we would joke about her inability to come upstairs. We still do as adults. And she, like, it's such a joyous part. Her energy about her disability has become such a joyous part of our relationship, that it's, I don't know, like, I wouldn't want my mom any other way, it's who she is, and we celebrate it, rather than, it's not a disadvantage. It's something we've always celebrated, because she's so strong as a result of, like, dealing with her shit early on and going, like, I'm handicapped, I can still do everything you can do, and actually more. She was an Olympic paraplegic swimmer. She swam for Canada. Like, she was she could beat me in arm wrestles until I was like 15, because she had biceps and a back. She was amazing, and her perceived disability was actually a strength. It was extraordinary. And it's something really to think about for storytelling.
Because my dad's mother, who she helped a lot while I was a kid, so my dad could work. So I was around her a lot. She was completely disabled for like the last 10 years of her life in a wheelchair, in a bed. She had a curvature in her spine, just completely paralyzed her from the waist down. And so I watched her go through this from walking to not walking. So I've witnessed it full on, and she didn't let it get to her. And that's something I need to remember, do what grandma did, or, that's what I tell myself.
I always tell people this: if I wake up tomorrow and am not disabled, I don't think I would want it. If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wouldn't know what to do with myself if I was.
Right. It's not who you are. You're like, it's a different person. It's like, would I like to wake up tomorrow in someone else's body? No, I'm flaws and all. I'll take mine because it's me.
Yeah.
Okay. So one last question.
Hit me.
You've received some backlash for your support on the LGBTQ community, a lot of it on Twitter. Does it ever get to you?
No. I mean, no, it doesn't. It doesn't get to me. It's frustrating that there are those people out there that feel that intolerance and hate is something that as a society is acceptable and something that they have a right to be vocal about. It's frustrating and it's disheartening, but it doesn't get to me. I look at it as an opportunity to educate and to, have an opinion and to advocate and to stand up for things that I believe in and to fight for people that I consider friends and family, people in those communities that I have so much love for. And I go, oh, this is my chance to sort of fight and be strong and be vocal. So I certainly wish that we weren't having to deal with it at all, but it doesn't get to me. And I do have hope that one day, at some point in the future, we're just one love, this like sort of hippie idealism, but truly, like, we shouldn't be having to deal with this crap. It's nonsense, and it has no place in a civilized society.
Yeah, it's 2021. It's like, y'all need to move on already. It's like,
let's breed that out of our race, please. Let's just get that hatred right out of here. We don't need. Who has time for intolerance? Like, who has the time? Just love your fellow man, and the world will be a better place. So I'm doing my part.
Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us. We had so much fun.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Do you have any more future works coming out?
I've got a script that I'm working on now that's been in the works for about 3 years, that was sold about 3 years ago, and it's a project that it's really fun. It's I think maybe we could see it come out in the summer. I'm co-writing it with a friend of mine, and I can't really say anything about it. It's based on a series of books that we've adapted, and it should be like a good summer sort of adventure movie. But your words about writing in a character with a disability have given me some things to think about, and I actually have been thinking about that for a while, simply because of my own upbringing and wanting to honor my mom and how incredible she is. So I'm gonna I'd like to move forward with that in mind and see what I can do there. Well, I think you have already. I think you have. I have a few things that I have to sort of get off my plate before the new year in terms of writing, but I have a project in mind that I've already sort of been tinkering with that would possibly suit a disabled lead. It might be really interesting. So let me think on it. You've given me some food for thought.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And if like Merry Thanksgiving weekend and Castle and like Christmas by Starlight and Santa Stakeout was anything, I'm pretty sure this is going to be whatever projects you have your name on will be good, because so far you've hit home runs with all of your movies.
I know the pressure's mounting. Now I got to keep it up. I appreciate it.
We honestly really liked your movies, and we're critical of a lot. We don't mince words when we don't like something.
we criticize things that we don't like. So
Thank you. Me too. Me too. I work really hard to be criticism free on those, to just like iron out all the bugs so you couldn't come at me with anything. So I appreciate it. Appreciate you noticing.
Yep. And you write some gems, so I'm excited for your next project, whatever it is. Anyway,
Thank you very much.
Paul.
Thank you
It
so
was
much.
lovely to
Merry
be on.
Christmas and Happy New Year.
Yes.
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you.